day in that part of South Africa, and residents of informal settlements in Cape Town are pleading with the city to help them. Many families have been displaced after their homes were flooded because of heavy rain. The city says these areas are not suitable for human habitation. Our reporter Monique Mortlock is following the story, and let's cross to her for the very latest. Monique, thank you so much for joining us. You know, we spoke to the Weather Service yesterday, and they warned about second and third cold fronts hitting the Western Cape, and the city of Cape Town, of course, the flooding concern. We know that the city installed stormwater systems in informal areas last year to try and prevent flooding, and yet it seems here we are again.
Yes, Sally, and the city of Cape Town is saying that the majority of reported flooding complaints that they've received are from informal settlements, new informal settlements that have cropped up in the last year. A couple of days ago, when I spoke to the City of Cape Town's Human Settlements MACO member, Malusi Boy, he said that in the last year there have been about 53 new informal settlements cropping up across the city, with occupants ranging in about 100,000 residents. And the city is saying that it's in these areas that they are seeing the majority of the flooded the flooding, because many of these informal settlements are built on floodplains, on wetlands, as you mentioned, on grounds that are that aren't suitable for human habitation. So the city is saying that it's winter intervention measures that it's put in place, like the clearing of stormwater drains, like one that we visited in Langa, in these sections where they've implemented these interventions, they've seen a reduced risk of flooding in these areas. So it's only in the areas where there are new informal settlements that they are seeing the problem. But let's take a listen to the city's Safety and Security MACO member, JP Smith.
Some of those include at the moment Gugulethu, one of the settlements in Wynberg, Valhalla Park, Khayelitsha, Hout Bay, Masipumalele and Overcome Heights are some of the areas where we've had flooding. Some of the flooding we're dealing with at the moment is because these are newly invaded areas. So I asked disaster management, are all the areas that we're seeing now recurrent areas? They said no. Most of the areas that we've had floods in last year, we've been able to do mitigation. We've been able to get stormwater systems they cleared, or build additional draining, make additional draining infrastructure investments. But we have a lot of problems because of all the new informal settlements, mainly because of the Disaster Management Act Regulation 70 and the South African Human Rights Commission court interdict that's prevented us from removing structures, such as, for instance, the structures built on Empolweni on top of the area there where the new stormwater and sewage systems are supposed to go in.
So right or wrong, people are living there and now they're in dire straits. What sort of help do they need? Is the city able to help them?
Sally, and this is the complex situation that we are in. The informal settlement residents, they told me that whether we are right or wrong to be living here, we are now in need of help. We visited one informal settlement called COVID, which is one of those informal settlements that the city is speaking about that just cropped up over the last year, where there are approximately 2,000 people living there. When we were there, we spoke to residents whose homes have been flooded. They have nowhere else to go, and they are just pleading with the city for help, because what they are seeing is that just opposite them in the main road, where there is some localized flooding due to blocked drains, they saw city officials coming out to clear that drain and to fix that situation. So for them it seems as if they're being forgotten, they not being cared for or taken care of by the city. Let's take a listen to one resident who lost many of her belongings in last night's rain.
Ndihlala apha eCovid yo sisengxakini kakhulu apha njengoba usibona sidade emanzini liyanetha izindlu zethu ziyadada konke ene ngoko sinandawo yolala apha uba singalala kule ndawo sizawugula usuka kwethu apha sizawuhamba siyofuna indawo zolala kwiifamily zethu nakwindawo zorenta sicela usithi akhawulezise asincede futhi sinabantwana apha okumele baye esikolweni abanye bancinci makakhawulezise usithi asincede noba wenze ntoni ezilong singazudada emanzini okwesibini sizawugula apha.
I mean, the fact that you tell us that there is a settlement that's called COVID, just I suppose shows us how new the settlement is, but also emphasises that people are quite desperate for a place to live. I wonder if you could just tell us what is happening in terms of other storm-hit parts of the Western Cape. I know that the Garden Route had some very heavy winds overnight, and I believe it's not quite over. There's a number of cold fronts coming.
Yes, Sally, the South African Weather Service has issued a warning to say that the cold front will be persisting in the Western Cape, especially in the city of Cape Town and in the Garden Route. I've saw some of the latest information from the George municipality saying that there are still some parts of that region that's without power due to the impact of the storm. There are also some private residents, some houses that have had trees fallen on them, so damage there as well. The George municipality's disaster risk management teams are assessing the damages and helping where they can. So far, no reports of any injuries or deaths, thankfully, but in those areas where there are power outages, the officials are having some trouble just restoring the power there due to those strong winds, but they will be continuing with repairs throughout today. But with this cold front continuing to persist throughout the day, we've even seen it. I've heard from some residents in the Stray area, which is a couple of hours outside of Cape Town along the Agulhas region. Some residents there saying the roads are once again flooding. If you'll remember last month when we were there, after a particularly major storm in that area, the roads were completely flooded, belongings were destroyed, furniture was destroyed, and at that time already residents were calling for help from the municipality. The municipality promised to create a system to allow the water to flow into the nearby dam, but residents say they're once again stuck with the same problem, so we'll also be keeping an eye out on that situation in that region.
Well, thank you so much for that update on the Cape of Storms. That was Monique Mortlock coming to us live from Cape Town.